I think buyer's agents might just be done.
Definitely not. There's always a place for buyer's agents.
I think this is going to be a disaster.
It's just where the market's headed.
Okay, well, this is exciting because we have a great group and panel of people. Today, we're going to be going over the new NAR verdict, the National Association of Realtors settlement verdict. So we have Shamima Rumi, who is a residential real estate agent. Here's me, Noel Friesen-Friedman from the Center for Real Estate Education. We have Sophia Badi, and I think, Sophia, our DJ, you are going to give a great insight about what the general population feels about
Absolutely.
this, the home buyers feel about this.
You know, in terms of like what it means for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have Eric Anderson from Alexander Anderson Real Estate Group and Omar Sharif, who's also from Alexander Anderson Real Estate Group and is our investor specialist. So first, let's listen to a CNBC clip from Ryan with Ryan Serhant talking about this.
Awesome.
Is here to weigh in on the recent blockbuster legal settlement by the National Association of Realtors. If approved by a federal court, that deal would eliminate the industry standard 6% sales commission and put money back in the pockets of home sellers. Joining us right now is real estate broker Ryan Serhant. He is the CEO of Serhant. And Ryan, let's just talk about that. I am so confused by everything I've read around this, what this means, how things are coming. I guess you've probably spent a lot more time trying to analyze it. What do you think happened here?
It can be very confusing. The lawsuit alleged that the National Association of Realtors, real estate brokerages, and local MLSs conspired to obligate a seller to pay a buyer's agent's commission. And what the settlement does is it really acknowledges that the traditional brokerage model has to change. And I think we all agree that there should be a free market conversation around compensation. And so what will happen starting this summer, nothing changes for right now around the country, but what will happen starting this summer is that buyers and buyers agents, if they elect to use one, and sellers agents, should they elect to use one, because you're not obligated to use a real estate agent in the United States, and you're not obligated to pay 6%, 10%, or 1%. Right? Those fees are what the market has commanded for decades.
It's kind of standard, and it's standard because people don't buy homes every day. So by the time you figure out what's happening, you get to the other side of this. Look, I think there are times when I've absolutely needed a broker, other times where I have not.
Sure.
And it's not easy to figure out or to negotiate on these ends. If everybody thinks that this is the way it should be done, why did it take a lawsuit to get us there?
Oh, I am all for market transparency. And what frustrates me the most, just kind of to what you're saying right now, is that the old guard in this business has spent so much time, so much money, on lawsuits just like this, defending where they've been instead of trying to build to where we're going. I think what happens now is new business models. I think there's new opportunity.
What do those models look like? What happens?
I think there's going to be greater versatility in how you work with your agents. And what's interesting for me is if you look at over the past 10 years, regardless of this lawsuit, all of the new technology, artificial intelligence, websites, iBuying, Zillow, et cetera, humans buying and selling homes have actually elected to use realtors more because it's so complicated. You don't know where to start.
Well, I have to say part of it is a tight market. If you're in a tight market right now trying to find a house, by the time it's on Zillow, it's gone. So I think that you absolutely need a broker in a tight market where houses are moving quickly. You need a broker if you are moving to an area that you're unfamiliar with. You need a broker if you're a first-time home buyer and you don't know the risks that are associated. You don't know your rights. You don't know what you can and can't ask for along those lines.
Correct. And what you'll have now is greater transparency, which I am a massive, massive proponent for. It's one of the reasons I started my own company. I looked around at what my competition was and a place that I could go as a realtor myself, and I couldn't find the transparency that I wanted. And I think real estate agents are paid in a correlation with their value that they provide to their customer. And that's what you'll see more of going forward. If a buyer wants to use a buyer's agent, there is going to be greater transparency.
But meaning what? The buyer says to the agent, okay, I'll take you on as my agent. You can show me places, but I'm only going to pay you X%, or I'll pay you a flat fee. Or, if you get me a house in this amount of time, you can get this percent versus, if you don't meet any of these things, then I'm not going to pay that same level.
Yeah, I think it remains to be seen how this is going to shape out in the open marketplace, right? Yeah. These new rules aren't going to go into effect until sometime, at least over the summer.
Brokers work hard. And remember, brokers work hard on a commission basis. There's no guarantee that brokers are going to make any money. And they're out there busting their humps, trying to get a seller or a buyer a big opportunity. So I think that they deserve to be compensated for that opportunity.
There are certain parts of this that make me feel like it's all bull, because they're saying, well, now there's no more 6% commission. And I'm not a real estate agent. However, did you ever have to pay a 6% commission, Shamima?
Yeah, for most parts, you can negotiate that with the sellers. But I feel like taking that away from the buyer's side, now buyers don't have representation. And now sellers, you have a listing agent that's going to promote your property, but how are you going to get buyers? Because as a buyer, if I'm doing my hard work and I'm not getting paid, I'm sorry, but I don't want to help you. My time is money, right? So if I'm looking at listing agents and they're giving me $1 for my hard work, and I don't think a lot of people understand there is a lot of things that goes behind being a buyer's agent. It's not just get you a property and that's it. There's a lot of things that come up. Some houses, you don't have to do anything. It's a quick closing, easy and done. But there are some instances where inspections come up. Attorneys, lawyers, everyone, there's different personalities you're working with. Sometimes attorneys are not working and not being efficient and then realtors, we got to come in and say, hey, listen, let me go to the city hall. Let me go do this.
We're like the doctor,
We're like the middle person,
taking care of everything.
Right. And I don't think, as a consumer, as someone that knows nothing, I don't think that we understand, because before all of this, I was like, oh, broker, whatever, we don't. But listening to this video and listening to you, I'm nodding my head, actually, I feel like hearing what you have to say makes me actually probably not want to do it on my own and get a broker.
And the reality of it, I think as a good buyer's agent, we don't disclose all the troubles that we're going through. Yeah. Because we never want you to be stressed. You're already putting so much of your money out. Why would I stress you out?
Right.
So there's a lot of back ends that happen that we just handle it and we're like, yeah, just sign this paper, or listen, this is what's going on. Just give you a snippet of it. So just because the buyer or seller is not seeing everything that we're doing doesn't mean we don't deserve to get
10
paid.
phone calls you had to make to get the agent on the phone to get into the house.
Even just getting people to view the house is enough work.
We sometimes show random times they want to see. We have to work with your availability, your schedule, take my time out of my day, and then I don't even know if you're going to be buying a house in 6 months.
Exactly.
That. So I wasted all my time and might not even get you into a place.
Not to mention that in the old way, if you didn't sign a buyer's agreement, you could go and buy with someone else after someone showed you 15 houses.
And I have to say, I have a good friend who sort of did that. She was looking for a house at a certain time, and she went and saw a ton of houses in this one area, used a certain person, decided not to buy, waited 6 months, picked another area, picked another buyer's agent.
That's horrible.
And then bought that house. So, that person worked really hard to show her all these different houses, and then she never bought with him.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
So now, knowing that real estate agents, they go through a very intense class. They have to take a national and state test. Well, usually it's combined. And they have to then uphold to a certain amount of standards. You as a consumer, you don't know all of that. Would you want to go through all of that? Would you do it yourself? Would you try and do it yourself?
It depends on how, I got the house and the market that I was in. But I would go through a broker because, I'm very busy. And you sound, a broker, it sounds like you're an event coordinator and a lot of other things.
That's
you know,
a very good comparison.
Yeah, like 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 you said, you have to deal with all these different personalities and stuff. Like me, I would just go with a broker.
Yeah.
Now, understand that broker, if you're buying $1 million house, that buyer's broker could cost you $30,000.
That's fine, because time is money, and they're putting a lot of time, and you're just putting the house on the market. So for me, I'm like, I would rather take the loss with like, you can have your commission, do it. I don't have to put in all that footwork and all that stress, you know?
Right. And then there's buyers also don't know how to get their offer accepted. Like, this market is heavy with buyers, right? And we were talking about this earlier, how what does the buyer know? Like, first-time homeowners, what do they know about homes?
Nothing.
Nothing. They all know they want to buy a house. Sometimes they don't even know how to do the math right to see what the cash flow is.
Exactly.
No, you're right.
And us, as a professional real estate agent, they should be sitting down and talking to you about these things. And you have this much money, what you should do with it. That's why we're here, to guide you. Here, and if you don't ask these questions, that's up to you as a buyer. We can't read your mind. You're supposed to pick our brain as much as you can so we can provide our feedback.
And then you don't have to stick with a specific one, right? Like, you can feel them out, right? Is that you could
find somebody who's educated, knows their information,
and that's working for you rather than just or
So
with you rather than just.
The new rules are proposing that you have to sign an agreement with a buyer's representative for yourself. So typically, like you said, talk to a couple people, find someone that you think vibes with you, understands who you are, understands what you want, but then commit. Yeah. You got to commit. If you don't commit, then nobody's going to work with you.
True, but even now, buyers can always sign a buyer's agreement with their agent, right? So
you could always do that, but people don't usually do it.
They don't, but even when they do, how enforceable is it? That's another issue of its own.
It's a contract.
I don't know.
But who enforces it? The board enforces it. And if
but
you really,
people don't go out of their way to hire a lawyer and be like, oh,
they won't.
Do that. It's like sometimes you're like, oh, you know what, forget it.
Yeah, I think this whole ruling is a case of, like the video mentioned, it's a case of transparency. Bring more transparency to the market, because the way real estate is done today is not how it was done 50 years ago. Everything is online these days.
Like what he said, transparency.
Yeah. So it's really, and the lady interviewing him even said, if this has always been known, why did it take a lawsuit to bring it to the table?
Yeah,
Which is a good point.
This is a bogus. Like, if people who are selling their homes have an issue paying real estate commissions, there's something called FSBOs. Sell it yourself.
For sell by owner.
Yeah, figure it out. There's ways. It's not like there's
That's
no
like
ways.
another job.
It is
Yeah,
like
but
another job.
that's what you're
job.
choosing. You want to save $30,000, then do the job yourself.
Yeah.
But it's same for the buyers. How is this going to affect first-time homeowners and also lower-income buyers? So,
I think it's going to hurt everybody.
How is
too.
it going to affect low-income earners or first-time home buyers?
Because if in the past, so here's the deal. In the past, no, look.
I'm looking.
In the past, right? If your seller is paying the commission and you are buying that $800,000 home, you were just looking at it like, okay, there's this $800,000 home, I can afford that, okay. Whether or not the commission is built into there, you don't have to come out of your pocket for the buyer side of the commission.
Right.
You know that you're just doing that. And we were talking about this, how we don't feel that homes are going to get any cheaper. It's still going to be an $800,000 home. That's what the market was taking.
Okay.
But now you as a buyer are going to have to come out of your pocket and give your buyer's agent
Fee.
See,
But
and
I don't
Yeah.
think that's going to be a case. Who's going to come out of pocket? That's a suggestion.
But if the
that they're
seller's
doing.
not paying it, whatever
who's
the
gonna pay it?
percentage is.
The buyer is going to go direct to the seller, is what's going to happen.
But what
Buyer's
if they
agent
don't?
is going to be kicked
So
out.
what
Well,
if
what
they
if they
don't?
want a
What if
buyer's
someone
agent?
goes to
Then they're gonna
Shanima,
reduce the
signs an
fee.
agreement with her?
Then what's going to happen is what's already been happening. There's the brokerage out there that offers this. It's going to be compartmentalized, and the buyer is going to find an agent and say, hey, look, I'm going to pay you $1,000. This is what I want you to do for me. That's already out there. So this is just a case of bringing it to the table and making it more transparent.
So basically, buyers brokers are going to be working for $1,000 instead of a 3% commission.
They're going to be paid to do very specific tasks instead of just being hired to do the whole runaround when everything today is available online.
So that
it's about
means-
time that this is happening, and it's just a change that the market's going to go through. And
So
that's-
maybe you guys could tell us some of the maybe new business models that you see coming out.
Well, I think Omar said it already.
So a lot of these models already exist, right? So
Okay.
FSBO, like Shamim mentioned, has already been out there. If a seller decides to put the house on the market, the challenge is they don't know what the house is worth.
But that's not a business model. Where do you think brokerages will go with their business models for buyers agents?
I think they're going to offer what, I'm not going to give names, but there's a few offices that already offer this. They're just going to itemize the services that an agent offers. So they may say, hey, if you need contract negotiation consulting, $1,000 for that. Why does an agent need to do it? If I could find the house online, right, I'm going to play the advocate over here, devil's advocate here. If I could find the house online on Zillow, know exactly where I want, know the neighborhood that I want, which everyone has access to today, why should I hire an agent to say, hey, I want to put an offer on this house?
Because they said that by the time you go on Zillow, the property's already gone.
In cases,
Access to MLS
in
is
our-
big.
but the MLS and Zillow are one and the same today. This wasn't the case even 15 years ago, right? Or maybe
Not
a little bit more.
necessarily. I mean,
I do
it
think-
takes there's a lag.
I do think
There's not a lag.
buyers agents get a little bit of a quicker
They
notice.
do.
But
They
but
do.
Case in
In
point,
what
we
sense?
found my house on the MLS, and it hadn't gone on Zillow yet. I didn't see it on Zillow, but we found it on the MLS.
It's also
are
not
you talking
updated though. All the information that we see is not updated on the buyer's end. Because my client sent me a property today. I saw it on the market on Zillow. I went on it. It says temporarily out of market. So you're not being updated with the real time information.
There's a lag.
And there's a lot of stuff happening. So as a buyer's agent, I feel like the buyers are going to decrease as time goes by. Maybe this is another way to sustain the economy somehow instead of going recession. But there's definitely going to be less buyers because people can afford. You already have closing costs, down payments, and buyer's agent.
But that's assuming that the buyers have to pay their agent a fee out of pocket, right? I don't think that's going to happen.
Where do you think the fee is going to come from if it's not coming from the
He's
seller's
just
commission?
saying that instead of them hiring an agent, they're going to hire services.
Right. No, I
Like,
get that.
alright,
It still
no.
comes out of their
But
pocket.
alternatively, what's going to happen is, let's say I hire a buyer's agent, and I tell the agent that I'm going to pay them 1% out of pocket, 2% out of pocket. What's the number at this point, right? How much am I paying them to facilitate?
It's $1 million
this transaction?
house.
Right. It's
What's the number?
price. Well,
Because-
it goes by percentage of what the house is
But
being
that's
sold for.
how it is now, right? So what the argument is if I'm paying somebody out of pocket, am I really saying I'm going to pay $20,000 to show me 5 houses and put an offer in, and then hand it over to the attorney who gets paid $1,500? That fee is going to come down regardless. The argument here is, up until now, the seller determines how much commission the buyer's agent gets paid. That part it's not
So
transparent.
you think a buyer's agent is worth $1,000 or $2,000, but a listing agent is worth 3%?
No, I think the whole dynamic is going to change because it's transparent now. And I wouldn't call it a monopoly. I know that's what it's referred to as, but people just don't know what goes on behind the scenes. When a buyer starts working with you, they have no idea how you're getting paid. Some buyers don't even know that you get paid commission only.
Yeah.
That's why they waste your time, because they'll call you on Saturday afternoon,
Yeah.
show you 5 houses, and they're not even interested in them. Why? Because they don't value your time. They don't know that you're not getting paid.
I still think a house is such a big asset or liability for so many people, and they don't have the ability to mentally wrap themselves around the transaction. And
I agree.
they need these people.
So I do agree. Buyers are not educated enough to take this big decision.
or sellers.
It's weird because, like, as a seller, I would want a broker, but as a buyer, I would prefer not. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather just buy it from some without
Save your 30,
right.
your 30,000.
Right. So it's like such a
So
a
there's,
tug.
there's a case to be made. You need a buyer's agent to at least guide you towards the right pricing, because you don't know what if it's overpriced. You have no idea.
Right.
So there's a balance there, but I don't
Right.
think the solution is to come out of pocket and say, hey, I'm going to give you $20,000. Help me find a house.
no.
It's
I don't
always-
think that's the solution.
Yeah.
It's always been negotiable. We had YHD a couple years back where they were charging 3% for a brokerage fee. I think that we could have left everything the way it is and just negotiate. If you don't want to list your house and pay 6%, don't. List it and pay 3%.
So they don't. So today's market generally is 4 to 5%, right? Most people list at 4%, split it 2 and 2. But even that, the 2% that goes to the buyer side is not transparent enough, and that's what this whole thing is about.
Do you think that brokerages or the whole model of commission-based compensation is going to change within brokerages? Do you think that buyers brokers are going to become regular employees, not independent contractors, and just get paid as employees?
So
I
that's
think
what
so.
that's what Redfin. That's exactly the model that Redfin does.
Redfin does that?
Yeah.
Hmm.
They
They
do
have their
pay
own.
their agents a salary, and then there's additional fees that they do for specific services that the agent can be hired for.
So if you hire Redfin to be a
to show
buyer,
you one house, they'll show you one house.
and you have to
For
hire
free.
them to do that.
They get some salary from their office already, so they'll do it, and they don't expect anything in return.
But
And-
if they show you a second house, what happens?
I don't know what their business
No.
model is like. But no, but they're on salary, so
Right.
meaning that they don't expect you to. You're not tied to them if they show you a house.
the whole point of being a real estate agent was having the flexibility, having the ability to make unlimited amounts of money based off of your hard
Yes,
work.
but-
And you know, that's changing the whole industry.
But you're representing yourself. This
But you-
isn't about you.
For me,
as an
it's
agent.
like looking at society as a whole. Like, I think every place of work is looking to cut people out of situations.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's happening here. Is like, how do we cut this out and make? And everything is becoming more elite too. How do we make it more elite and to buy a house and cutting out the other jobs? Like,
Yeah.
you
want
know,
to make it
No, that's
one
right.
one stop shop, and that's it.
right,
Cut that.
instead of every like a lot of hands in the pockets
Right.
and everyone making money rather than, and now just
I think this is gonna be a big disaster. coming.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be a lot of chaos happening because you're gonna lose. The house prices are not gonna go down.
Yeah,
no,
not.
they're going up.
They're going up.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to tell you earlier. Like the market is not gonna go down. Like this is the lowest, and I think it's gonna go up from here.
So what does that have to do with the commissions?
I don't think
Because they're trying
the
to.
commissions
Yeah.
are gonna be cut. They're gonna be
Yeah.
on salary on different ways. Like you go and show the house, you're gonna get paid for this.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to, like, let's say you get paid $30,000. I'll just pay $15,000 to the listing agent. They say $15,000 as a seller. They think they'll, be able to fluctuate the prices where they'll attract more buyers. But now you have those buyers don't even know what they're doing. What are they gonna do? Here,
think-
write me a
right.
contract, and then someone's gonna negotiate. Now
Yeah,
you
the
have
contract
and
part.
a lot of lawsuits,
explaining,
a lot of chaos.
just explaining what you want
Lot
to
of
every
lawsuits.
realtor is annoying because most buyers have the certain criteria they want to stick with.
Yeah.
When they want a pool, house, this and that, like family issues out, they're gonna explain the situation to every realtor every single time, even if they hired a Redfin agent to coordinate their transaction. That's gonna be frustrating alone, And I think once a buyer knows the task that could possibly come with the property, maybe they'll be open to different options.
Not
you know?
$15,000 worth.
I
don't
mean,
think
I've
so.
The
done-
system worked before. There were no issues with it. People were not forced to pay anything. If they didn't want to list it with a real estate agent, they could list it on their own.
Exactly.
There were nobody forced anyone. I've been doing this for 20 years. I was never forced to charge a
No, it's
specific
always
amount.
been
It was
negotiable.
always free market.
Yeah.
So I think this lawsuit is baloney, and I think that we should leave it the way it is. It just makes sense. It makes it easy. Everybody gets protected. There's so many rules to protect the clients. Real estate agents are professionals. They protect the people they represent. The transparency there. Maybe just do a campaign on that. You can adjust. You can negotiate. But to do this,
The
is
truth
crazy.
is, it's not going to stay the same because this cat has already been let out of the bag. Pandora's box has already been opened, and it's going to change. It's just for real estate agents, real estate brokers, real estate
So-
schools to pivot with it.
Yeah,
I think it's going to change.
move with the times.
It's going to change in the lower priced market.
Correct.
I think the higher priced market where you're
They'll
selling
pay.
a
Yeah.
million, a
Yeah.
million and a half
They'll pay.
up, it's not going to change at all. And I
Why?
think that it's going to
Why not,
hurt
though?
the because
Yeah,
Because think about
upper
it.
end markets, people don't want to do this work. They
Right.
want
They don't want
professionals.
to, but
Right, when-
I think across the board, commissions are going to come down because even in the higher end markets, you sell a $2 million house. If you know that you don't have to pay 6% or 5%,
But you never had to pay. People negotiated. The
but
higher
now
your
it's
price
out.
point, the lower
Now,
you.
I just feel like it's out now, right?
Can
So
I s-
even at
can I-
5%.
Can I say
Yeah.
one thing? Like when my dad bought me my house, right? Like I had money already, so I didn't care to pay them the commission. I just
Right.
wanted to get the property off my hands, type of
When you sold it.
Yeah. when
thing.
you sold
So
it. Mm-hmm.
that right. So that just go like with people with higher market houses. Like it's not like they're counting every.
Right. They just
Every
want the
penny.
transaction to happen. They either want
Right,
to own
they
it or
just
sell
want-
it. Either
right.
way.
And they don't want to deal with the trouble.
Right.
And they'll be able to be like, but if you're if you're a lower income first time home buyer, you're going to be like, every penny I need in my
Right.
pocket, and then I'm buying a fixer upper, so I needed to then fix it up afterwards. Like
So I can
every
see
penny
from a
counts.
consumer's point of view, the high end people,
Right.
time is money. I get that, but brokers are going to adjust. So if you get approached by two people offering the same services, and one is offering significantly less,
If you're a high-end broker and you know what you're doing in the market, you'll be able to hold your price point. You'll be able to hold your commission. You'll say, I'm worth 5%, and that's the way it's going to be.
yes, that's how it works now. But now that the cat's out of the
I
bag,
think it's
gonna
going.
change
I think it's going to
because
stay the same for the high-end market. I think the low-end market, it's going to be exactly like you're saying. I think it's going to be chaos. I think all these people are going to get involved in things to try to save money. And I think there's going to be tons of mistakes and lawsuits, and people aren't going to know what they're
Mistakes, yes.
doing. And a lot of people that should be having representation aren't going to have it
Why not?
because they're afraid to pay for it or,
Yeah.
or don't want to pay for
I,
it.
I think they will have it. I think, to your point, people are being removed from this whole process because technology is taking the place of what people normally do.
If they
So
read and if they do the research.
now that technology is improved everything to the point where you could just find a house on Zillow and then figure out how you can get the information that you want, the traditional model is going to change.
What do you? Go ahead.
But that's going to take some time for that to happen.
It is.
Where brokerages are offering certain services, and that's going to take a couple years. I would say it's not going to be in July.
I don't think so. I think companies will pivot this summer. If a company sees their business model starting to change, they will find a way to change with the times. Do you guys think that there's going to be now a shortage of real estate agents? Do you think people are going to get out of the business?
I think so. If you're not a competitive buyer's agent, then yeah.
They're trying to cut.
Yeah.
They're trying to cut that whole occupation together. That's what I feel like this
I think
whole
the
model is.
The part-timers might disappear because part-timers specifically do more buyer's rep. And if buyer's representation goes away and you just have listing agents, then part-time buyers are not really listing agents. So.
Yeah, I think there's too many agents out there already. It's
Yeah.
about time they get cut.
I think there can never be too many agents, but go ahead.
That's get your license.
Get your license.
I actually like the fact that there's more agents out there. I think it's great for educational purposes. People can represent themselves. I'm all about it.
That's true. Now, have you thought about that? That, so there is a level of education that you need to do to get your real estate license, but it's not insurmountable for
bare minimum.
everyday people to get their license, put it into referral and just hold it. What do you guys think about that? Like, you could get your license put in referral and like every time you buy a home,
I think everybody should get their license.
every time you buy a home, you do it yourself because you've given yourself the knowledge. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I think that's a lot of like extra work.
So you'd rather pay.
Yeah.
So you pay
It
10
depends.
grand
Like
or
what
get your
finan- like
license. Which one?
there's when I'm like I'd rather pay someone to do stuff for me because I'm already doing a million things myself.
And I would agree with her because to get your license, learn it, find a house, learn it,
Pass the task.
pass the test,
Right.
go through the process, know what you're doing. That's not easy to do.
But you're
No,
also
it's not.
established. You're making money for that first-time home buyer who doesn't have money.
But as a referral agent, you really don't know. You're inexperienced. You have less experiences than a buyer's and a seller's agent. So that means you know less about real estate. So you're about to get into real estate market with little information that you know. So I
Got
think
it.
you're gonna be digging yourself a hole and just
Yeah.
burying
So
yourself
people
in it.
probably not
Yeah.
go
Some
and get
people
their
do
own
it,
license.
But I don't think it's going to be something.
Like even with our class that we're doing, like my goal is to get my real estate license.
Correct.
To still be knowledgeable and like
There's so much information that you can learn in real estate. I feel like every day I'm learning something new. It's infinite amount of things,
Yeah.
Just because one house has this many problems doesn't mean the next house won't have 10 more problems. So
Thank
how do you
you.
tackle
Know
that? But because as real estate agents, we're dealing with that every single day. Like whether the client buys that property or doesn't, we at least know about it, asking questions, doing our research, we are educated on it.
but that's a good one though. There's a lot of ones that
yeah.
Well, she brought up a great point. So you represent 50 transactions. You have the strength of all of those 50 transactional experiences. Somebody's going out there buying that first house. They have no idea what's coming their way.
My friend,
Yeah.
I was helping one of my friend. They was like, "What's an oil tank?"
right.
Such a simple thing. What's an oil tank? So
Which is
if
very
he was-
important, though.
If he was representing himself,
What is an oil
figure
tank?
it out. Like, what are you gonna
You're
figure
from
out?
the
Like,
city.
They don't have them in New York City, right?
yeah, there's gonna be
They
a lot
do.
of questions
They
that
do?
are like gonna
Oh.
arise, and they're not gonna know.
And you
Septic,
know that because you're
Even like the
experienced.
updated the electric, what is it? Like
electric
the
panel.
Yeah, like and the heating and stuff, like all of that.
Yeah.
Like
As an agent, like I'm walking around, like I'm looking at the wood, I'm looking at the panels,
The
I'm looking at the
moldings.
water, everything, mold, I'm looking at those and trying to advise my clients. I'll give you everything, but I'm not making a decision for you. I'll guide you. You make the decision, you know? So as a buyer, you're walking in and you're like, what is what? You don't know if there's black thing on the, you'll think just, I don't know, some part of the wall or something. You don't know if
or
it's
like
small
the
or not.
tile, I want to change the tile, but what's underneath the tile?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I think
small details,
very important.
but they're very important, very
I think
significant.
I agree with you. in the sense that a good agent will point out these defects.
Right.
A good agent who has experience will point it out, but most agents don't point these things out, and an agent's job is not even to point these things out.
Right.
So I don't think the market requires an agent to be that knowledgeable.
But they didn't add to this case. Every buyer is required to have a home inspection. So if they put language in that said you can't do a transaction in residential without having a licensed home inspector look at your property, at least when you have a real estate agent, that gives you, if you have someone who's good, that gives you some semblance of another set of eyes
Well, let's
looking
say
on
you
the
didn't have
property.
that. Most agents come in, they'll show the house, and what do they do? Let's put an offer in, right? Show the house. I like it. Put the offer in. Not every agent's going to tell you what's behind the walls.
Well,
even
then you're
if
with
it-
the wrong agent.
But that's
But
what
that's
I'm
an
saying.
agent.
They should.
But they're not gonna know what's behind the wall.
Not behind
whatever.
the wall,
I mean,
but like you said, the
whatever.
black mold in the ceiling.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
there's a black spot
Okay,
here
so
that's
Yeah.
10 by 10.
So then let's
look
do
at
that. Hey,
Can
Mr.
get
Buyer,
overlooked.
there's a black piece of mold over here. What do you want to do?
you. But at least you brought it to their attention.
would've
Yeah.
But
brought
we
it
can
to
bring
their
that.
attention.
Now
Which
there's
is fine.
negotiation.
Didn't you just talk about transparency?
Which is fine, but the home inspection is in place for that, is what I'm saying. A great agent has their value. I agree with you. But you don't, it's not a deal breaker if the agent doesn't know how a house functions.
Isn't there? There's no fiduciary duty from the buyer's agent to point out something. I'm asking to point out something that is obviously defective and that any regular real estate agent would know.
If it's
I
that
feel as
obvious,
though
if it's
the
that
other
obvious.
day when I was,
If it's-
at the school, I was reading about this in one of the
So
books.
if it's that obvious, the
Yes.
buyer themselves should be able to see
Why?
it. But
I have no idea about black mold.
because
Shamima does.
agents are not trained in black mold either. It's just
But her
based on
experiences might give her something that
it'll give
gives her
an
the
average
edge.
agent enough experience to say that's black mold. Do something about it.
Or
there's
mold in
something that
general,
we should
right. So
So then
investigate.
do something about it. Right. So that's a defect that'll come up during the home inspection regardless. So what I'm saying is that a good agent has their value for sure. But that doesn't, I don't see how that relates to this
Okay.
overall
I can
process.
tell you that if I wasn't in real estate and I had one of my kids was going out to buy a property for the first time, I would 100% want to have a buyer's rep to help me through
I
the
agree.
process.
Yeah.
I agree today. I do agree. But that's not going to change. I don't think that's going to change.
Do you think it's gonna be, let's say some seller gives 6%, and then now they're gonna list it, maybe at 1%.
And the
So I
seller,
was
yeah, they
ta-
keep 5%. Oh,
I was talking to somebody earlier who said that the seller's agents were going to put it on the market for 4%. And then when the buyer walked in the door, they're going to say, I'll help you and represent you for 2%.
For 2%. That makes
and
more
still get 6%.
Because it
That's
says nothing
shady.
about
Is it shady?
disclosed dual agency.
Well,
They didn't
they're
outline
they're
that.
they're saying I can because
that
a
don't
real estate agent can be
My
a
point is
dual
they're still
agent.
gonna
They can
charge us
represent both the
6%.
buyer and the seller.
That's what I'm okay.
They,
they're gonna
they
give
can.
2%
It's not the
regardless.
best thing because you as an agent are supposed to
But
be
they're
like
still giving
legally
it out.
responsible to help
for one person.
So that's
But-
gonna
That
happen.
is
No, they're going to
shady.
charge
If
the buyer the
both
2%.
parties are
They're
like,
going to
it's
get the
okay,
4
then
from
they
the
can-
seller.
I wouldn't like that.
No,
Yes.
it's
No.
not the best deal.
You
Wait,
come
wait.
to an open house, someone walks in and says, I want you to represent me too. What are you going to say? No. As long as your seller agrees. As long as your seller agrees.
Oh, so they'll take the 6%, 4% from the seller, and 2% from them.
Yes.
Well, if I was a seller, I'd be like, no, I don't want you to have any kind of fiduciary
Yes.
duty to
Oh, right.
anyone else.
If
Exactly.
they're educated
Yeah.
enough to say that. But if you
Yeah.
have like
Yeah.
But
the
then the
king
realtor
of real estate listing agents in your house saying, I got this, don't worry, there's no issues, da 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 da.
Or
then-
I have a buyer that I'm going to bring to the table for
Okay,
you. Don't
but
worry
that's a
about it.
direct
I'm going to represent both.
conflict if I do share responsibility. They can't do that to the seller.
if
You
they
can be a
agree to
dual
it,
agent.
You can, but
Both
you
parties have
can't. You
to
can't
agree.
keep a buyer from coming into the seller's table, and because you want to take money from the buyer, that's you're representing the
nobody's saying
seller.
to keep it. There's no rules that say no disclosed dual agency.
Yeah, that's not dual disclosed agency. That's you saying that hey, you're interested in this house. I'm going to gatekeep unless you pay me my fee, and then I'm
I'm
going
not
to let you
saying
into it.
gatekeep. I'm doing an
You're not
open
saying
house.
it,
I'm doing an
but
open
that's
house.
what it
I'm an
is.
open house.
Yes.
Okay. I have an open house. I represent Sophia. Noelle walks into my open house.
I love this house.
And I say, and she says, Eric, I want to buy it. And I say, great, I'll be happy to represent you as a disclosed dual
Would
agent
you?
for 2%. Then what happens?
Did you tell the seller that you're going to
Now he
make
has to go
Yes,
back
I
to the
have her
seller.
agreement that I can do
Sometimes-
this.
so 6%?
As a seller, I wouldn't care.
Because you just want the house sold.
Yeah,
Right.
or like I don't have to go through.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay,
it's
but-
just
like
And if
Yeah.
you're,
That's
hold
not-
on, if you're the seller,
Yeah.
wouldn't you rather me have control of the buyer and the seller? Because now I control everything because Noelle agreed to pay me 2%. I control
wouldn't
everything
actually.
now.
I wouldn't think that makes any difference. And then I would tell you,
Makes a
why are
huge
you
difference.
taking
But
this
then
buyer?
who whose fiduciary duty does he really have? Does he have one to me?
It's a conflict.
What if they pay
feels that way.
4% for that whole
Hold on.
process?
Dual
instead of
disclosed
6?
agency is
So-
a conflict of interest to begin with.
It is,
I
but
believe.
but
I
it's
believe
allowed.
that, yeah.
Right, but what
it
you're
is
saying
allowed.
sounds good, but it's just so many. It's just like
Okay,
a.
but is it question? Is
Is it
disclosed dual
unethical?
agency
Yes.
allowed? Yes
in
or
some
no?
states it's not allowed.
Is it allowed in New Jersey?
In New Jersey, it's allowed.
Okay.
Some states it's not.
So, since
you're
it's allowed in
saying-
New Jersey, then in theory, I could get 6% for
But
selling
what
a
you're
house.
saying is not dual
Why don't
disclosed.
you
You're
just get 4?
gatekeeping.
How am I gatekeeping?
Because
Everybody's
They could do it
welcome.
for
Yeah, and you're
he's
telling
saying
that buyer
they're saying
that, hey,
people-
you
No,
have
no,
to
no,
pay
no.
There's
me.
no rules
Noelle
now, they
comes
can
in
do
and
whatever.
asks me to represent her.
And you're saying in order
And
for
I'm
me to
saying I'm
represent
happy
you,
to do that
you have to come out of pocket by 2%.
because I'm not going to represent her for free.
Right,
Correct.
but then what about the next buyer that comes along and
They can come in. Shamima
you're-
can come
but
in with
you're-
her
but
buyer,
you're
or
gatekeeping.
so Joe Schmo could come in by
so
himself.
if Shamima comes in and says, "Hey, charge me 1%," you're gonna say, "What are you gonna say?"
I'll charge her 1%, and I'll represent her too.
what if
I'll
she's-
represent
Can
both
you
their
do that?
contracts.
What if the buyer comes in and says,
Both.
"You know, I just want the house,"
Then they can also
I
bring an
mean,
offer, and I'll present the seller
I
all
think-
3
I
offers.
think-
So you're
It's
still
so
charging
shady.
me to present my offer?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing.
We
Because
agreed.
they're-
No, no, no.
he's a
You
buyer's
asked me
agent.
to represent you. If you come in as
Let's say
as
it-
a person and say I want to present my own offer without a rep, no problem. But Noelle comes in and says, Eric, will you also rep me? Absolutely.
You could
What-
rep 2
hold on. What's
buyers?
the difference
Why
between
not?
no rep and a rep? She's coming in and says, "Can you submit my offer to the seller?" Right?
and I'm happy to do it for free.
You're just gonna do it.
Yes.
Okay, so then the seller's gonna look at that offer and say, "Is this higher? Is she qualified? Should we move forward with this?" You're gonna say no because I'm not making my 2% off this other agent.
I'm not going to say
and
no.
I'm here
going
to serve myself.
I'm going to present all 3 options or all 2
No,
options.
but that's
You might not.
There's,
You
like
might
said,
not,
There's
but
no
right.
rule.
Yeah.
There's no rules.
So
A
You're
lot of people
100%
aren't gonna
right,
do
but
what you would
You're
do.
right.
it doesn't
You're
matter
right,
what
you're
we
right,
think
you're right.
because the law allows disclosed dual
Yes,
agency.
put this in reality, and it's going to be like you're a self-serving agent that wants to make money for yourself by charging the buyer
And some
2%
and some agents will.
and the seller is going to say
Some.
no.
But there are other agents like me who put the seller's needs
But when
first.
there's no rules or regulations, it's a purge. Like, they're
Yeah.
going to do whatever they want. It's going to be a purge.
It might go for 10%.
Yeah.
So imagine an
could.
agent comes into the open house and interested in purchasing the house, and the listing agent says, you're going to pay 2% out of pocket. That's a deal breaker right there. That's not going to work out.
But Noelle's a novice. This is her first house. She's
I
happy
don't
to pay the
know.
2%.
Well, she
Right.
probably won't even have the 2% to pay, and she's not going to not.
Noelle
talk
has a
to
ton of
anyone.
money. What's wrong with you?
Right. So you do, right?
Do you want my 2%? Here.
Yeah, sure. I'll take the 2%.
I want my $2.
Right?
I don't think that's going to happen at all.
I
It's gonna
100%
be
know it's going to
compliance, I
There's a
think.
happen.
conflict of interest.
I might think that it's gonna happen.
People, if there's a way
Yeah.
for people to be shady, they will
Yeah.
find out a way
But
to
I
be
feel like,
shady.
it's going to filter out. Like, if someone doesn't know how to represent themselves and they don't have the money to get a buyer's agent, they're not going to be in the market. They're
You're
not
having these
purchasing.
perfect experiences right now. We're talking about the situations where you have a couple clients that are desperate for these houses. They're going $75,000 over ask, right? You're telling me that if you're doing an open house and one of these clients walked in, they're not going to pay you the 2% that you asked for to rep them
Yes,
to
I'm
get
saying
that
that.
house?
I'm
Of
saying-
course
I'm
they're going to
saying
do
You
it.
guys are
exactly
giving me
I'm
anxiety
saying
because
exactly
that's
that,
what's
because
gonna happen.
can
and we're all
you
gonna be
can you
asked.
name any industry in this planet where you pay somebody $20,000 up front to say, hey, can you submit an offer for me? That
lot
doesn't
up front,
exist.
you pay
It
at
does. In
closing.
the music industry, it does.
Okay, but
Ha.
in
She's
what
like,
way?
there
In what
you
way?
go.
Ethically, yes.
Unethically, okay. Key word
But
over here.
people still
It's-
do
but it's-
unethical business.
But we're talking about standards, right? Standards in the real estate industry. There's no
No, we're
industry
talking
in
about
this world.
reality, and reality is that someone is going to
So
be a
NAR
dual
is going to set
agent.
standards, is what I'm going to say.
But there's
Will
no,
they?
there was no
I don't
discussion on
know.
disclosed dual
I
Yeah,
agency.
they
No.
didn't say anything
Yeah.
about
No,
I
standards.
meaning
don't
that
know.
whatever what I'm saying is whatever passes, it's going to be the standard practice in real estate. That's the reason NAR exists. They set the standard practices in real estate. So if something like this comes about, shady things may happen. But there's no chance, there's nothing on this planet where you're going to walk into a house and say, hey, I'm going to give you $20,000 up front so you can write up a contract and submit it.
We have to
Doesn't
read
exist.
Actually, I
the
totally
settlement
disagree with you
closer.
because if I
but
was
they're
in,
you're no
if I had a
longer
lot
gonna
of
have to-
money, sorry,
If
and
you
I
had a
was
lot
try-
of money, keyword.
if I had a lot of money and I was trying to buy my house in the Hamptons for the summer,
Okay, so you're a very exclusive buyer,
whatever,
very
but
niche
it's there. You
situation,
said
not the
nobody,
standards,
and
but
I
okay.
wanted that house. I wouldn't care what check I had to write, and if I had to
Okay.
write that 22% check,
Okay.
I would write the 2%
Okay,
check.
but that's a very unique
I
example.
would
to
too.
say.
if I
So what
was-
about
but-
like we said, it's going to take a shift in the lower market.
That's
So what
I'm
about
saying,
those
the
people?
lower market. Let's talk about
So
the lower
forget
market.
about the
No.
high end because they obviously don't care what they're
Let's talk
spending.
about the lower market people.
I have buyers who only want to put 3.5% down because they only have 3.5% down,
Yes.
and and they have only
They're gonna
15,
lose the-
10,
they're gonna
15,000.
lose the house.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that means they're going to filter out.
Yep.
Those buyers are never going to be able to buy a house unless
That's
they
what's
save
gonna
up that
happen.
money.
Or because we're pulling out all those
And how hard
buyers,
is
the
it to
market
save up
will
money?
shift and the house prices will drop because there'll be
No.
less buyers.
No, the rich. This
No.
is
You
where
don't know.
rich will get
No.
richer and poor will stay poor
Yeah.
because they don't have
That-
money to pay a
so
commission.
that's bullshit. I don't believe in the rich getting rich. Rich people
No,
They do
because
get
work
richer.
hard
they are gonna get.
and they make money.
I'm not talking
Money
about
makes
working
money.
hard.
No, no.
Exactly, money makes money. If he
Yes.
has money to pay his commission to the listing agent and the buyer's agent, then yeah,
Okay.
he's gonna get the property.
Okay.
And then there's gonna be a lot of fishy business happening because as a listing agent, you want to represent the buyer and the seller. All right, I'm not gonna present
people
anybody
do
else.
that now.
Exactly, it's gonna be even more dominant.
Potentially, yes.
It's
Yeah.
gonna. It's gonna.
That's why I think they should just leave it
all
the way it
the-
is because it's transparent the way it
Yes,
is.
yes.
They
They're-
should. They should because now it's going to be lesser for the people and more for the system.
It's an even playing field now. Now
don't
they're
think-
creating all this extra shit that doesn't need to be there.
Exactly.
I feel as though I
Or-
read that you do not have to put things on the MLS anymore, and that
Yes.
you may not. Do you still need to be a member? You don't need to be a member
If
of
you
NAR.
want access to the MLS, you need to be a member of
But
all
if
that
you
stuff.
don't need to
what
put
they're
things
saying
on
is
the
you don't need to
MLS.
show the commission. If there's a buyer's commission, it's not shown anymore.
on the MLS.
So I don't
Got
know
it.
where, how,
Okay.
what are you supposed to call each agent and get the commission? I don't think this is hashed out yet,
Okay.
Yeah, that's not. But,
but
also,
it just makes no sense to me.
Got it.
you don't have to be a member of the MLS. That's a part of it too. Because
Right.
right now you're required to be a member of an MLS. If you're
That's
part of
what
the
I
board.
thought.
Yeah.
Right, but if Shamima is a broker and is not a member of the MLS, she can still present an offer on a house that's in the MLS.
Right, but if she's offices these days have to be part of a board. If you're part of the board, you have to be part
Right.
of them. The way it is a monopoly, the way they do it, even in New Jersey. Like
Play
if you
Monopoly
want to be a
or-
realtor, if you want to be a
My
designated
favorite
realtor,
game.
right? You
I've
could be a
never
real estate
understood
agent or you could be a realtor, right?
Mm-hmm.
A realtor has to be part of a board. And if
Correct.
your office is a realtor, you have to be part of a board.
Yes.
That itself is a conflict.
And if you want to be part of that office and you do residential real estate, you have to
But
join
a commercial,
the board.
if you do
Yeah.
commercial, you don't have to be part of any of these boards.
Correct, but if you do residential deals, they will come after you.
No, they won't. You can go as a commercial agent. If Omar listed a property, I could go as a commercial agent that's not part of anything and still go hand him an offer.
But what's your office a part of?
Nothing. Let's say it's part of nothing.
Then your office, right? So your office.
But
has
you
to be
still
part
have.
of
But I can still present you an offer, and you can still pay me
if
my
your
commission.
office is part of nothing. But if your office is part of a board, then you as a commercial agent
Yeah.
have to be
Yes.
part
If
of
the office is part of the residential platform, then you have to follow all
right,
the
so
rules.
you need an office that's not part of any board, anything that's completely independent.
Yeah. So while we're on that topic, commercial agents don't have to deal with any of this
Correct.
crap.
So, if
So
you
be a
want
commercial agent.
right?
But
Exactly.
what are some things that you see as a commercial agent? Like, do you see where they're not giving you any payback, like as a
The
buyer?
commercial agent's always been the wild, wild west.
Mm-hmm.
People do whatever they want. There's no rules.
Mm.
You can offer a commission split. You cannot offer a commission split. A lot of these large companies will list properties and put them on the market, and they don't share commissions.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to call. There's no assumed obligation in commercial. So if I'm going to present a property and offer, and if I think there's a commission, I have to ask that broker, hey, are you willing to split a commission with me? Is there anything you're offering me? You put it in writing and you go. It's the Wild West, and so you put it in writing. Residential, everybody expects all this
Yeah.
stuff. So
Right.
It's gonna be
commercial
the same
is
thing what was happening commercial to happen in
Yeah,
residential.
that's kind of it works in commercial, even though
It works in
there's
commercial.
no specific rules.
Yeah.
And in commercial, they'll call you and they'll ask you how much are you offering. You'll say 2%. They'll say, well, my office only accepts 4%. Right? They'll say things like that.
they can say whatever they want.
They don't
There's
do
no
that in
rules.
residential. Yeah.
And so for instance, New York City pays higher commissions on office product than some of the local New Jersey specific towns. And when a New York City broker comes in here, they're thinking they're going to get 7% or 5% on one
Yeah.
side. We're not offering that out in New Jersey. They have the choice to present it or not. If they're ethical, they're still going to move forward. They're either going to try to get that extra percentage from their client, or they're just going to move forward as is. If they're not ethical, they won't present it.
Does this mean that
Yeah.
we're all gonna live in commercial buildings one day?
Thanks for watching this episode. Now don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And we'll see you next time.